The Antifa Massacre. The new movie Civil War mentions an important yet enigmatic event called the Antifa Massacre. Likely this event was slightly more fleshed out at some point, but the movie was edited to remove a lot of its initial leftward slant. What political orientation would target Antifa for some kind of final reprisal? If history is any guide, well, pretty much many of the same people who support them now. I have to mention the guys in this picture here. They are National Socialists. I can't say their commonly known name or YouTube will bury this video. Then there's this guy. Saying his name gets my video suppressed as well. If need be, I'll refer to him as Mr. H, because you need to talk about both of these guys, this guy and that organization, if you want to talk about Antifa. Antifa stands supposedly for anti-fascist. They claim lineage back to Germany's communist KPD street armies from the 1920s and 30s. To make such a claim is an embarrassing level of ignorance or a very odd admission. The political violence in post-World War I Germany began with the KPD communist thugs attempting to foment a workers' rebellion with violence. The claimed forefathers of Antifa weren't defending their party. They were the aggressors who helped kick off the political violence. Their targets were paramilitary units brought in by the government to restore order. Because the KPD communists now had its own armed force, the other parties followed suit, because KPD Antifa brutes were brought in to break up marches and speeches of their opponents. Well, at least they were fighting National Socialists like these guys here, right? No. At the point where the KPD attacked the government, the future NSDAP didn't have enough members to even fill a beer hall. And this notable future member of the National Socialists at that time was currently a member of the KDP, German Communist Party. So, one of their brothers, so to speak. The government that the KDP communist fascists were attacking were social democrats. Antifa's progenitor organization helped delegitimize the Social Democratic Party and laid the groundwork for the National Socialists to take over. As the National Socialists rose to power, many of the former street fighters of the KDP, or what the heroic Antifa would like to claim as their own, joined the National Socialists, these guys, as part of their SA. And the SA was the army of the National Socialist Party. And the SA would end up spawning the SS. Yes, that SS. The communist KDP, the heroes of Antifa, would spend their last political breath undermining the Social Democrats and helping propel the National Socialists to power. Now, Antifa history is pretty much a fairy tale. The most laughable item of fake Antifa history is the claim of the existence of Anti-Fascist action, supposedly the direct link to modern Antifa. This organization supposedly arose when the German National Socialists came to power, roughly in the 1930 to 1934 period. But oddly, there's no actual record of this group fighting any form of resistance at all. In fact, there's no mention of them in the histories outside of Wikipedia. The Wikipedia entries that do mention them go to sources that have long since disappeared. But the clue that this is all a fever dream is the name itself, Antifascista Action. The fascists were an Italian socialist party, and the German National Socialists were these guys. The concept of using the term fascist interchangeably between the Italian and German socialists did not exist at this time. Antifascista, boy, it's hard to say, antifascista action was supposed to exist at the time that these guys hated each other. The fascists and the National German Socialists were rivals. When Germany made initial moves on Austria, Italy and Germany almost went to war. Australian fascists and Australian National Socialists fought each other. In fact, one ended up assassinating the other guy here, Adolphus, yes. The deliberate commingling of the term fascist and National Socialist came from when Russia entered the war against their fellow socialist state, Germany, and had to choose a word that was both foreign and lacked the direct use of the word socialist in the title. Thus, National Socialists were called fascists for propaganda purposes. In short, the German KDP put the German National Socialists in power. Antifa made no stand against the 1930s fascists or National Socialists. And anyone under the banner of Antifa never existed before the 1980s and could not linguistically have existed until Operation Barbarossa. Antifa, as reality knows it, was born in Germany in the 1980s. It started as a movement to squat in urban downtown buildings. Over time, they became professional rioters. Their distinctive black bloc look, reminiscent of Italian fascist black shirts, is to confuse authorities. So when there's 50 people all dressed the same way and one breaks a window, it's hard to identify who actually did what. When people in the black bloc attire get arrested, they tend to get lesser trespassing charges rather than the assault, arson, or vandalism they're actually committing because the perpetrator is actually hard to identify. Antifa was imported into the US. It organizes and funds itself via peer-to-peer methods. A donor might donate to something like GoFundMe in some form of eco-protest, and then the funds actually end up going to Antifa. This allows money to flow from international socialist oligarchs and domestic political groups to be laundered through NGOs, 501(c)(3)s, and innocuous sounding crowdfunding campaigns. Some donors know exactly where the money is going, others are just dupes. These groups were at best a nuisance before 2016. After Trump was elected, Antifa was greenlit to cause mayhem. Increased money flow from establishment and international donors allowed their numbers to swell, and then they have a tendency to co-opt any other movement in progress to have more opportunities to riot. For example, the BLM protests were pretty much taken over by Antifa. The big cities were open to this due to a combination of district attorneys who were sympathetic and others who were experimenting with novel criminology methods. When people were arrested, the charges were typically minor. If they couldn't get off due to DA leniency, GoFundMe-like efforts were used to post bail and pay for lawyer time. So, why did this happen, and why might it happen again? Well, a small portion of our establishment is Marxist adjacent, and they want to unravel the system. Now, as I've said many times, the bulk of our establishment is progressive. And the progressives are using the agitation caused by the rioters, who are now impervious to law enforcement, as a tool to speed up change and demoralize the population. The bulk of the voter base has no idea what they're voting for or why. So when there's rioters and they're destroying the cities, they just say, we want to make this stop. And uninformed voters just say, well, must be the fault of those in charge. Then they think, must make it stop by voting for the other guy. So, in the end, who would want to massacre Antifa? Well, pretty much anybody once their usefulness is over. For the most part, Antifa is made up of unskilled midwits and pseudo-intellectuals. they have a talent for organizing violence. So, if like a right wing figure like a Pinochet were to emerge, that type of person or movement would wipe out Antifa to install order. If a socialist regime arose, they would cull from within, like Mr. H did to the SA, to safeguard the gains and create a planned approach to their end goal. If the progressives reach a point where they no longer feel threatened, in terms of how they seem to be kind of rattled now with the way our system's running, once they feel that Antifa has made their usefulness, or once their usefulness has come to an end, they will purge Antifa and pretend like they had nothing ever to do with its rise. Now, even if the impossible happened and there was a full blown Marxist revolution, Antifa would be liquidated just as Lenin took out the Mensheviks and the Social Democrats, because the last thing a revolution needs is another revolution. All right. So, how many people have seen the movie? Anyone even pick up the whole Antifa thing, Antifa massacre that's even mentioned at the beginning of the movie? If you saw the movie, tell me your opinion. And what do you think? Do we have another summer of love coming at us with Antifa and other forces? Looks like they're starting to play out on the college campuses right now. Interesting to see if it continues to spill out over the rest of the summer. So please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithm's brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, please consider subscribing. Look at my other titles. Do a lot of different stuff here. And if you know someone who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.